Let's get lucky.
Donnie, the season is 6 months, 5 if you check out in September. You're gonna have a bad month. The Yankees had a horrible month, that is true. But beyond that, their regular season looks okay. They're gonna win their 90 games or maybe a little bit more and get to the postseason. What is everybody freaking out about?
Everybody freaks out. It's the Yankee tax and the Yankee fan tax as well, where every single season you enter into the equation going like, it's championship or bust.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember these names: A.Z. Fudd, Olivia Miles, Lauren Betts. Depending on who wins that lottery, that's going to depend on who goes one. If Washington wins, it's Fudd. She's from the area. If Dallas wins, they're going to bring Fudd to play with, obviously, Paige. If Minnesota wins, I think they go Miles with the point. If Seattle wins, they go with Miles, and the same thing with Chicago.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
College football can't allow Notre Dame to have the type of, year they have and schedule they have, and honestly put them up against other teams. Because Notre Dame looks like they're going to be a decent football team. They could lose, I think, next week to Texas A&M, Joe. Right. I don't think it's a great football team, but still a ranked team. And then run the table and still be in the playoff and absolutely beat nobody. The worst schedule they've ever seen in college football is Notre Dame this year.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Full reaction to a wild week 1 of the NFL season, plus Jake Paul tells us his thoughts on Mike Tyson getting back into the ring. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today from FOS Studios in New York City. I'm Baker Machado.
And I'm Renee Washington. Happy to be back for my birthday celebrations and happy to have you guys joining us each and every weekday as we chat the biggest stories in the business and culture of sports. We're also looking at how South Florida cracked the top 25 with a small athletic budget, smaller than their peers at least. But first, let's dive into the shooter.
Yes, happy to have you back and in green today, Renee. Loving this. And let's start at the U.S. Open, where Carlos Alcaraz defeated Jannik Sinner for his second Grand Slam title this year, taking home that record $5 million prize and also reclaiming the world #1 ranking for the first time since 2023. Now, Alcaraz 6th all-time in earnings with over $54 million. And by the way, he's only 22 years old. Meanwhile, on the women's side, Aryna Sabalenka won her second consecutive U.S. Open. She defeated American Amanda Anisimova, taking home the $5 million prize, and now moving her 4th all-time in earnings with $42 million, becoming the second woman since Serena to win back-to-back U.S. Opens.
Yeah, and it's remarkable because now Sabalenka is about $1 million away from passing Venus Williams and Iga in terms of career earnings. She's continuing to move up. At the 27-year-old, phenomenal performance in the U.S. Open, and as she just rises the ranks in career earnings and in stats on the tennis courts, her, much like on the men's side, we're seeing some dominance, definitely on the men's side, because much like we talked about on the show before, the Cincinnati Open has been kind of that appetizer for who's going to win the U.S. Open on the men's side. It continued this year. And with that now, you look at the history behind it, the 3rd time in a row that Alcaraz and Sinner have been in a Grand Slam final, the 9th out of 10th time that they've even won a Grand Slam title dating back to Wimbledon in 2023. Yep. They're just on a stretch right now of the untouchables.
Yeah, the last person to win that was not named Alcaraz or Sinner was Novak Djokovic back in 2023. All right, let's move to the WNBA, where 2 teams locked up playoff spots. The Indiana Fever, who have been dealt with a ton of adversity this season, including the absence of star Caitlin Clark, clinched one of those spots, making consecutive trips to the postseason for the first time since 2016. Meanwhile, the Golden State Valkyries became the very first expansion team to make the postseason, while also setting a WNBA attendance record, selling out all 22 of their home games. So, Renee, which is sort of the better story here?
Both. Yeah. They're both so great for the WNBA because we're in the final week of the regular season. We're looking at the MVP race between Aphysia Collier and Asia Wilson. We're looking at the teams that were eliminated that are now preparing for the draft and the future. And then you have teams battling. These two that lock in a playoff spot. Unfortunately, for the best of 3 series for Golden State, with that attendance record that they set, they will not be playing at the Chase Center because there is the Labor Cup, the international tennis tournament that's going to be happening. So they will not have a home game for the first series. But it's remarkable what both teams have accomplished, especially without Caitlin Clark for the Fever. And now we get to see who gets that last spot. Will it be the Seattle Storm? Will it be the Los Angeles Sparks as we're in the final games?
And by the way, the Valkyries and the Fever, #1 and #2 in attendance this season. Meanwhile, in the soccer world, Tottenham Hotspur say they are not for sale. This following the sudden departure of Executive Chair Daniel Levy, which triggered speculation speculation of a potential takeover bid. Now, Levy was the Premier League's longest-serving chairman. He earned more than $67 million during his almost quarter of a century with Spurs. The BBC says the club rejected an expression of interest from a former Newcastle shareholder and another consortium for the team.
Yeah, and when these rumors started last season around the end of the year, especially with Levy himself saying they were considering a minority stakeholder that they were going to bring on, it made people wonder what's going on with Tottenham. And then when you had, as you mentioned, the longest tenured Premier League chairman in Daniel Levy, that was originally they said he stepped down, but they actually removed him. It made people wonder what's really going on with the club. And as we've been hearing so many rumors circulate from the U.S. to Saudi Arabia, different stakeholders that were considering being majority owners and taking over, it made people wonder if a sale was going to happen. But Tottenham's put their foot down. They've confirmed they're not selling. If anything, they're actually focusing instead on winning more games.
All right, well, what a first week in the NFL, as fans were treated to some great wins for the Bills, Packers, and Steelers, but also commercials on Red Zone, and ratings for YouTube's first live ever game look a little bit lower than many anticipated. So what were the initial reactions to week one? Well, let's dive into that in today's main event. All right, let's bring in FOS reporter David Rumsey. So, David, let's start with the YouTube numbers. This was the first time YouTube ever carried an NFL game live. So what did it come out to?
Yeah, so in the U.S., YouTube and all its other platforms, YouTube TV and all its simul streams, it drew 16.2 million viewers per average minute audience, according to Nielsen. That's a little bit different than how they calculate a network game, but in the end, 16.2 million viewers in the U.S. That went up to 17.3 million globally. And the story here is that's higher than last year's Friday night Brazil game, which was 14.2 million viewers for Packers-Eagles on Peacock. But it fell short of some lofty expectations, with many people thinking this would break the NFL streaming record for a game exclusively broadcast on a streaming service. Of course, that goes to Netflix. Last year's those Christmas games, the doubleheaders, each drew more than 24 million viewers, so not close to that number.
Well, something that did not fall short in terms of intensity were the rest of the week one matchups. It felt like the NFL got it right in terms of storylines, beefs, rivalries, debuts. I'm curious your thoughts on which three games you felt like probably had the biggest draw in terms of ratings.
Yeah, of course. Well, we have to start with the Sunday night thriller, right? Buffalo eking out that victory over the Ravens. Last second, we had some drama. Lamar, pushing a fan, the Bills comeback, all that. So we'll get those ratings late tomorrow on Tuesday afternoon. I expect that to be a huge number, maybe not the most watched opener ever, but I expect that to be well into the 20 millions. Beyond that, you mentioned probably Micah Parsons, right? His debut with the Packers. And I think it wasn't necessarily the closest of games. The Packers had a handle on the Lions most of the game, but you had Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call, and we're waiting all game to see Micah Parsons get his first sack, and he held out till the end. The game was kind of in hand, but it was like 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He had that sack, and that's an iconic moment, obviously. We've been covering that drama so much at Front Office Sports, right? The trade from the Cowboys and the new contract. And then in that early window, I think you have to look at Aaron Rodgers' debut with the Steelers against the Jets on that field that he tore his Achilles on 2 years ago in week one. So what a showing from him. 4 touchdowns. We'll see if he can keep it up for the entire season. But if he can, the Steelers aren't in prime time right now until week 7 against the Bengals. But I could see the NFL wanting to flex the Steelers to even more prime matchups later in the seasons if Rodgers keeps his play up.
Yeah, very good point. The other thing for a lot of us was watching Red Zone this weekend and seeing how they would be implementing commercials. Now, Scott Hansen had basically said, look, it's not going to be a ton of commercials. It's not going to be a lot of changes here. What was sort of the reaction from everybody else about the commercials being in Red Zone?
I think for me personally that it made the experience much, much worse. And maybe I'm watching other games and I don't realize when the commercials come on, but I think they did stick to what they said, which was going to be 1 minute of commercials, 4 15-second ads where it's a split screen and the ad audio played, but there was still a game showing. I think one of them, the first one was, during a cutaway from Raiders Patriots, early in that first half. So not a huge deal, but I think some fans still like to complain a little bit and say, hey, this is not commercial free. We're paying for the service. I think that's a valid claim, right? You have to pay $10 extra a month YouTube TV to get that extra premium package to get Red Zone. But in the end, if it stays like this, I don't think it's a huge deal. But do they double it to 2 minutes and 8 ads? Do they go completely off screen where we're not seeing any Red Zone football? I think that's where fans would really get upset if they do end up making those changes in the future.
Yeah, when you look at some of the new rules and the new tools that the NFL is implementing, we did see #1 pick Cam Ward's debut against the Denver Broncos. It also was the regular season debut for the virtual measurement system. We've seen it in preseason. We've now seen it in regular season action. What are your thoughts? Is this the right direction for the NFL as they're trying to speed up the game and add extra rules to just make it more efficient in how they're going about officiating the games?
Yeah, it's interesting because the NFL, in my opinion, doesn't really have a problem with being too slow like MLB had for years, where those games were just dragging on and on and on. But, it's kind of, it's a little bit nostalgic to think about the chain gang coming out there and, measuring, and you put a little index card in between the football and the chain. So I guess we won't have that necessarily, although they are there this year as a backup. I do think it's efficient, and I trust them. I think the real key is, do they eventually go to using more technology to actually spot the ball? Because right now we still do have the refs spotting the ball, coming in, walking in, and then we're just using the technology to measure it. So we'll see if that change comes in the future as well.
Having watched this when this was happening during the Broncos game, it felt like almost like a tennis replay where you saw how close it was, and it showed to the fans 10 inches away from a first down, so that way everybody's on the same page
I like the
here.
chain gang.
That is
Yeah, we all miss the chain gang. David Rumsey, thank you so much for all your insights. Thank you. Coming up next, everyone, Jake Paul joins us to tell us if his fight in November is still going to happen, and his thoughts on Mike Tyson re-entering the ring. That's next.
I was looking at it through my phone at first. I'm like, why is there such a delay? And why are we getting pitch hitters right away? Oh, the pitcher got thrown out for some reason. Maybe he hurt himself. But no, turning out and seeing a brawl was absolutely hilarious to let that one play out. Just the way it is sometimes in baseball. We don't get a lot of good fights and a lot of good brawls in anger, specifically from two teams that aren't going to the playoffs. So good on them for showing that moxie last time. But it's good to see a little bit of a brawl and a little bit of that passion here.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You're looking for JJ. You and I already discussed here. Addison's gone for a couple of games here. They don't really have a number 3. Thielen, fine. You do have a nice tight end here. The running game could be solid here. Like I said, I don't think he'll have the least productive season of his career. If the question was how it should have been with the injuries, I might have said yes, because then it would be 88, 1,407. So then I might have said yes.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
If a game is on the line,
give me the Navy kicker.
Oh,
the guy's going into battle in 2 weeks. He can't make an extra point. Come on.
From a mindset perspective, I'm not. Listen, we thanked them for their service. I love them. Okay.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, if you have a bet and you have an academy kicker with a field goal or an extra point, you got to hold your breath.
27 yards.
27 yards. The kid shanked it from like 30.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
The reason why I feel like Jared Goff doesn't really enter these MVP conversations. Jared Goff last year was on the team with the best record in football, threw for 4,700 yards, 37 touchdowns, and Tom was never in the race. He was never in the race because we know he's not that guy.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado here in New York. With football season here, it's one of the busiest times for sportsbooks and fantasy platforms. And the U.S.-based sportsbook and gaming platform Better, co-founded by Jake Paul, has revamped its platform as well as launched a new arcade vertical as well. So here to talk all about the gambling space as well as the latest in his boxing career is Jake Paul, co-founder of Better, as well as Joey Levy, founder and CEO of Better. Gentlemen, great to have both of you guys here. Joey, I want to start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the new and revamped features that people can see right now over on Better.
Yeah, sure. Great to be here. Appreciate you having us on. So yeah, just in time for the start of the football season, we've totally revamped our Better Picks product, which is a fantasy pick'em app where you could pick multiple players for multiple teams based on accumulated player statistics and win cash prizes. And we launched this product just about 2 years ago, and industry reports are already having us as being the fourth largest operator in this industry, despite being only 2 years old and this being a multi-billion-dollar market. So we've made a lot of progress already, and we're really excited about some of the new features that we're rolling out. Arguably, the biggest one is we now have the highest payout multipliers in the industry. So when we launched Better Picks, we were the first to go to 100x. Most of our competition were only letting users win up to 20x. We went up to 100x. Then everybody copied us. Then we were first to go to 1000x. Then everybody copied us. Then we did 2000x. Now we have a pretty significant lead at offering 10,000x your money to customers who play on Better Picks.
And Jake, too, exactly sort of what Joey was talking about there. How do you sort of disrupt this industry when there is such a clear delineation of the DraftKings and the FanDuels and all those other ones that are up at the top there?
Yeah, we've always come in, and we're the youngest founders and operators in the business, and we've always just had a different vision and better app, better UI, better offerings, and this is why the company is also called Better. It's just better overall, and we're creating a super app. You can also play arcade all in the same app. More things to come, and so the users can switch from different game modes and different things that make it more accessible and more fun for our users, and just being able to be ahead of DraftKings and FanDuel says a lot because people just love the product. And again, only 2 years in, and we've already accomplished this major feat, and it's just a testament to the team and what we have going on.
Jake, I want to move to boxing here. I'm curious, you got your big fight coming up on November the 14th in Atlanta against Tank Davis, but there's a lot of concern if this fight is even going to happen. Is it going to happen, and are you nervous about it?
Yeah, 100%. It's going to happen. It's scheduled, slated. Everything's booked. People always make rumors up about my fights and have a lot to say, but that's why there's always so much attention and why I do the biggest fights. So there's always going to be the critics, but we're ready to deliver an amazing card on November 14th, and it's definitely going to be my toughest test to date. Tank is a pound for pound fighter, ranked top 5. The most experienced, undefeated, knocks everyone out, very quick, very, has a lot more experience and skill than me. But I believe that I'm more athletic and stronger, and I'm going to be able to knock him out.
Jake, also, we've had a lot of people in the MMA world who are very excited about this UFC deal that they've got with Paramount. I'm curious, if you were Dana White, what would you do?
In terms of what, like?
In terms of growing this with the $1 billion that they're going to be getting from CBS.
Yeah, no, I think it's great on many levels, and flattered that they copied MVP in moving into the streaming world, and there's so many issues with piracy, and so it's great for the fans who are going to be able to get more fights and be able to tune in for a cheaper cost, and I think it's going to grow the whole combat sports world. And they obviously copied our model and going, we were the first to go into streaming and to Netflix. And so just flattered that a company that's been doing it for 30 years is following in my footsteps.
Joey, I want to bring you back into this because obviously Jake has been heralded for really sort of bringing and showcasing women's boxing. Are you noticing more action around women's boxing on Better?
Yeah, so we haven't launched our women's boxing product yet, but with that said, like I said earlier, this is our first season with WNBA, and we're pretty blown away by the share of handle that WNBA was for Better throughout the summer, consistently being really the number 2 sport behind MLB during the off-season summer months. So I think that's a testament to just the increasing level of consumer interest in women's sports right now.
And Jake, just piggybacking off of that, what do you say to those who say you've saved women's boxing?
Yeah, I mean, I think MVP has done that and given the women the platform that they deserve and shining a spotlight on them and their amazing fights that they have that are arguably more entertaining than, some of these fighters who go in there and fight for 12 rounds and don't throw any punches. We've seen it very often this year in the sport of boxing. And meanwhile, the women go in there and are highly entertaining, knocking people out, punching the whole entire time, throwing more punches. In the Amanda Serrano Katie Taylor fight, they threw more, like 10 times more punches than Canelo did in his recent fight. So I've always been a believer in women's sports in general, and especially women's boxing, and it's finally getting the attention that it deserves. And so many women and legends are coming up and on the rise and turning into superstars.
Jake, last question I got for you guys. Big news, obviously. Floyd Mayweather and Mike Tyson are going to do an exhibition match. Curious your thoughts, and who do you think is going to win it?
Yeah, I don't have many thoughts. I'm not super, interested in it. I think they're both going to make a bunch of money, which is great for both of them. But I think it's going to be a boring fight, and we've seen Floyd's fighting style. It's pretty boring, and obviously want it to do as best as it can for the sport of boxing. But I think people want to see different fights now. We've had the entertainment side of things, and me and Mike did it, and it's sort of a little bit old news now. But don't really have too many thoughts beyond that.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Guys, great to have you here. That's Joey Levy, founder and CEO of Better, and of course, Jake Paul, co-founder of Better as well. Gentlemen, thank you guys for joining us.
Want to play roulette? Here's a tip. European roulette has a lower house edge than American style. The lower the house edge, the better shot you have at winning. Most online casinos offer European roulette. So, if I were you, I'd get spinning. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Like it or not, 18-year-olds dropped with a whole heck of a lot of money in there. Boy, yeah. I tell you, it changes people, Donnie, and it's a new reality that we better get used to in college football, because look at the kid from UCLA, former Tennessee quarterback, making millions of dollars. You really think he cares? They got absolutely embarrassed and trounced.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The Dallas Cowboys losing that pass rush, losing another big impact player on the defensive side, all this does is make me like Dak Prescott more and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens more, because what we talked about all offseason, right, Matt, which is, hey, when Dak is healthy, he is a top 5 fantasy quarterback, and the defense we think is okay, but we think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Now I definitely think there's going to be a lot more shootouts.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
So game one, I already made a mistake. I put my touchdown prop bets in hours ago. When you and I started talking before kickoff, I got so excited and I bet him again without even thinking that I already did it.
Oh,
I was like, Jalen Hurts. And then I was like, wait, I think I already did this. And I scrolled down. I was like, yeah, you already did do this. And I was like, that's okay. That's okay.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today with Renee Washington and Baker Machado. Well, Renee, the only football team right now ranked in the top 25 that has beaten 2 ranked teams is the University of South Florida. Right now, the only non-power conference school in the top 25. Plus, of course, we've got a big battle of the #1 transfer versus the #1 recruit. So a lot of college football news to get to. So let's bring in FOS reporter Amanda Kristovich. Amanda, let's start with University of Southern Florida. They made $500,000 to take down the University of Florida over the weekend. Are they sort of a new model for a lot of these schools not in the group of 5 to sort of still be competitive here?
Well, I think that remains to be seen, right? But I think what is so important to me about what USF did this weekend is that not only did they win a pay game, right? One of those games where they get paid essentially to lose or to get embarrassed, and then they end up upsetting their rival who's sending them a big check. But they also have beaten now 2 ranked teams, and they're the only, as you said, non-power conference school in the AP Top 25. And they make like half in a year. The athletic department makes half of what Florida makes. So I think it's really impressive, especially in football. It is so much harder than basketball, for example, to pull off one of these upsets if you're not a rich power conference, deep-pocketed team. Not to say that USF is poor. They still rake in about $100 million a year. But in the world of college football, it's really impressive that they were able to pull this off. And I'm just curious to see if they'll be able to continue that. They're playing Miami this weekend, which is another big, power conference powerhouse. So we'll have to see if they can repeat this upset.
And now already 2 weeks into college football, guys, we've seen so much talk around the NIL, the transfer portal, the way teams are constructing their rosters, whether it's Oklahoma-Michigan's game, which was the #1 high school recruit in Bryce Underwood, an 18-year-old starting quarterback going up against the 21-year-old John Mateer, who's a transfer and actually was a backup to Cam Ward for a couple seasons, or even the comments around Mike Gundy, Dan Lanning in terms of the Oregon massive upset around Oklahoma State. What are your thoughts on how much under the microscope the NIL and transfer portal is as everybody's evaluating on-field production comparison to dollar signs?
I think one of the most important things to note for both of those stories is that the NIL dollars, they speak, but they're not everything. Right? So in the case of Michigan, Oklahoma, the rumors are that, Michigan's quarterback is making millions of dollars more than Oklahoma's quarterback. But we also saw this in the basketball world this past year during March Madness, that it's sort of not age before beauty, but age before money. Let's put it that way. A lot of times, if you're a more experienced player, if you're an older player, the transfer portal has made all of these rosters across multiple sports older. That is just going to be a huge advantage, especially at the beginning of the season when you are, Bryce Underwood, as you said, is 18 years old. It doesn't matter if he's a phenom. He still needs a little bit of time to get used to playing, as a Division I power conference quarterback. So I think it doesn't really surprise me that the transfer portal seems to be making a bigger impact than the high school recruit. But again, we'll just have to see. We're just a couple games into the season, so no reason to panic yet.
And Amanda, with less than a minute left with you, Bill Belichick is getting a lot of heat for saying that nobody from the Patriots will be allowed on campus for UNC. Could this be something that actually impacts recruiting there?
I've been thinking about this because on the one hand, maybe, but on the other hand, the Patriots aren't the team that they used to be. So I'm not sure that is going to matter that much to any of the Tar Heels. I think it's very clear that Bill Belichick has connections throughout the NFL. So I think he's probably saying to his players, look, don't worry, I can get you where you need to go. I'm Bill Belichick. Do you really want to be on the Patriots anyway? I think that's kind of how I reacted to it.
By the way, Mike Vrabel came out saying that Belichick isn't banned at all, so who even knows what's going to happen here.
At least they finally won for UNC.
Amanda Kristovich, good stuff as always. Thank you. And let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. Well, Renee, after a video went viral of a woman demanding a Harrison Bader home run ball from a 10-year-old fan, the Phillies invited that 10-year-old fan to meet Bader, and he even got a signed bat from the slugger as well. Now, the internet has still not been able to identify the woman being called Phillies Karen, but the dad told a local Philadelphia station that he gave the ball to the woman all to de-escalate the situation, which makes sense because it seemed like a really heated situation from the video.
Yeah, and I like that he said he had a choice to be a good dad and show his son how to properly de-escalate the situation or to just react. And I think it's hard in that situation not to just react because that's not the norm. This is his son's birthday. He's excited he caught the ball for him. He said he was the first one to grab the ball, and here comes Phillies Karen. But I will say this is not every Phillies fan that is like this. This was down in Miami, so this is more of a Florida Florida issue, then a Philly issue. But I also did read allegedly she possibly was fired from her job too, because she was flipping off the cameras and she was taunting fans with the ball. So she made it even way worse beyond just what she did with.
There has been some misidentification of who she is, but this is still an interesting story. So stay tuned. All right, guys, let's get to it for this edition of the show. We'll be back tomorrow for more fun.
Playing online blackjack and want to try upping your odds? Well, here's a tip. Cheat cards tell you statistics for whether you hit or stand on every move. If you're into stats, this could be your ticket to winning. And it is totally legal. Now, go get lucky.